I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits.
We're going to ask you a few questions about 9/11.
Sounds good.
What were your initial reactions and how do you think they will affect the world for the rest of our lives? How do you view 9/11 in context to American history?
Where were you the day of the attacks?
So today we're going to ask you a few questions about 9/11 for our project. Sure.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home.
Where were you on the day of the attacks?
First of all, Ari, you're gonna make a great class president next year. Like,
Thanks,
just
Clark.
amazing. Good.
So where were you
I'm
on
sorry.
the day of the attacks?
On the day of the attacks, I was in college. I was in college. I was sleeping late because that's what college students do. So I have actually a story. I got up at about 9:30 and I went over to the campus police office because my car was missing. My friend Paul had taken my car to class and without telling me, my friend. And so I was over there yelling at them like, "Where's my car? You should be looking for it." And they eventually turned around like Reagan from The Exorcist and gave me just an amazingly rude look. And I had no idea at the time that they were actually pulling kids out of classes whose parents they thought were in the buildings.
Outcasts.
Where were you on the day of the attacks?
I was here at Attleboro High School. I had a sophomore health class. We were going in to use the computer lab, and internet was not what it is now, but we were doing some research for health projects, and a boy said something just happened in the World Trade Center got blown up. And I said, "Colin, don't make jokes like that." And he said, "It's not a joke, it's real." So, yeah.
Where were you on the day of the attacks?
I was my second day teaching, and I was supposed to be shadowing someone. And we were walking into a building in Foxborough, and I heard about the attacks. It's pretty scary.
Hey, Mr. P, we're
How are
going
you?
to interview. I'm good, how are you?
Good.
We're going to ask you some questions about 9/11.
All right, perfect.
All right, where were you on the day of 9/11, 2001?
I was in Coelho Middle School. I was in Mr. Hoisington's class, and my other teacher, my English teacher, ran in and said, "You have to look at this." And then we put the TV up and we watched everything happen.
Where were you the day of the attacks?
I was down the Cape.
So where were you on the day of the attacks?
I was at work, but I started my first class at Rhode Island College to be a teacher. And it was kind of interesting because the teacher asked on the first day whether or not, if you had a class of young children, whether or not you would have shared the information that happened that day. And I was surprised to find that he said we should protect the children from such bad experience. So that sticks in my mind.
Where were you on the day of 9/11, 2001?
I was teaching 9th grade humanities at Attleboro High School.
Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain.
How did you find out about the attacks?
I was watching the Today Show, and I saw the attacks happen on TV.
Home. Tell the world I'm coming home.
How do you view 9/11 in context to American history?
I think it's a pretty impactful event that happened in our country. It's changed the way we live. It's made us, most citizens feel that sense of insecurity and fear. It's made us spend a lot more money on the military and trying to protect other places to prevent stuff here. So it's definitely changed the way we look at the world.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
The initial reaction was just a lot of shock. Well, I was just watching the TV, not knowing what was next.
Right.
What people don't get about 9/11 who didn't experience it was that there was that fear of the unknown. That like, oh my God, are there more attacks to come? Are they going to be nuclear?
Right.
There was just a lot of panic, I remember. And my parents called me, my grandparents called me. You know, everyone called their loved ones on that day because of the just extremity, the enormity of the attacks.
Yeah. What was your initial reaction?
Disbelief. I was at work, and they did have a small television there, and when the first tower, we thought it was an accident, and the second tower, it was like just disbelief came over you, and you didn't realize like the towers would fall, and what the consequences of that would be. So.
What were your initial reactions?
I started crying.
Your initial reaction?
I first said, was it Osama bin Laden? And kids didn't know who Osama bin Laden was, but he was on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list at that time. So that was, and it was staggering because you didn't know what it was. And I always remember at that time we had an assistant principal named Maurice Cameray. He's a big favorite of everyone that was here. And his wife was a math teacher. And you can picture being in the computer lab, and you can also look out and see the hallway.
Tell the world I'm coming home.
How do you view this as context in American history?
Well, actually, it's very profound, the fact that someone came on our shores and did such devastation. Yeah, I think that's like the benchmark of history, that something like this happened. So, I think it's going to change us forever.
Thank you so much. How do you view 9/11 in context to American history?
Well, American history is pretty extensive. 9/11 was, I view it as the birth of the new age of the war on terror. And of course, that's what the Bush administration coined it as. I think that there are a lot of questions about 9/11 that have to be answered still, that would have not been answered. I don't buy the government narrative that 19 people with box cutters, jacked up all 60 intelligence agencies in the United States for the first time ever, and somehow crashed planes into the World Trade Center and into Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and into the Pentagon. I think that there's a lot more to it. I think that there were some evil elements involved. I'm not saying that the U.S. government was involved directly, but I do think that there was some prior knowledge of these events happening. I think there was a lot of ignorance, and I think that a full investigation needs to occur, and hopefully this administration will initiate that, because fact of the matter is that you can't dispute this, over 3,000 Americans lost their lives in that day, unnecessarily. And I think that precautions were not taken in mass by our intelligence agencies, by the FAA. I think jets going like Mach 3 was scrambled from Otis Air Force Base that morning on Cape Cod, but way too late. How air traffic control didn't see this happening ahead of time, the planes turning around, was beyond me. I just find it really hard to believe that everyone was an hour behind. And especially in this country where we have brilliant intelligence agencies with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. How this could happen is beyond me, legitimately.
Thank you so much, Clark. How do you view 9/11 in context to American history?
I think it's been a defining moment in terms of my lifetime about how history has played out. I mean, everything that's happened has really shaped, our tension with the Middle East, our presidential races. Everything has been. This has been a huge talking point in terms of how we move on and how we view different races and how we view terrorism as a whole. So I think it's been a defining moment in our history, not necessarily the most.
Thank you so much.
Let the rain wash away all the.
How has this impacted you since 9/11?
I think for me, it affects going into large crowds.
Absolutely. How do you view 9/11 in context to American history?
I think it's affected everything that we do now as a country. I think we second guess everything. I think we're more conscious of how we're viewed by other countries.
Thank you so much. How has this impacted you since 9/11?
It's made me look at the world a little differently and given me the sense of fear, where when you're in big crowds or anywhere, you always feel like there's that sense of fear, not the same comfort level. I always thought America was always safe.
How has this impacted you since 9/11?
Things definitely put into perspective how quick life can change, but it's also brought to light a lot of people's biases and insecurities and perspective on the world, and how much more conversations need to happen about these topics and these feelings.
of yesterday. I know my